For some people, taking online violin lessons seems like a step down from taking them in person. And granted, there are some definite differences and things that we have to do in order for it to move smoothly and effectively. But there are several things that come up a lot as concerns that I'd like to dispel some of the misgivings about that. One is the idea that some teachers feel the need to put their hands on the student to help guide them. And obviously, if you're online, that's not possible. Another point that's raised is the idea that, well, the student has their music there, so I can't just go over and write something on the music, and it's necessary for me to have my own copy. So there are certainly ways around that that are really not a problem. I'll explain that. And the third misgiving, which is perfectly valid if you don't have a teacher that has the skill level to accommodate it, and that is some people wonder, how in the world is my teacher going to know where I'm carrying tension on a screen? So let me address all of those really quick. So the first concern is that many teachers, as part of their teaching method, will go and put their hands on a student and move the body around. That is not the way I prefer to teach. I very rarely will put my hands on a student for some very important reasons. When we go to touch a student, even if we have asked permission first, their body tends to brace as soon as we make contact. This can feel a little uncomfortable for a student, even if they have said, yes, that's fine. So what happens is the body then is not learning from the manipulation. It's in a guarded state. And so from a somatic standpoint, which is the body awareness, learning, proprioception, and so on, that is not actually in a learning state when we go to move the body. So while the student may say, yes, that's fine, their body isn't really absorbing how we got from here to there, in the same way as if it's taught in a way where the student can find it themselves, the body learns at that point. So from an online teaching standpoint, it really isn't necessary to not be able to put your hands on the student. And there are much better ways of doing it that will be more lasting and better integrated for the student. The second issue I mentioned was the fact that the student has their music there on their stand, potentially, and I can't go and write on it. Well, that is something that we learn to work around. I have my own copy, or I'll have them hold up something if it's a piece that I know intimately, front, back, forward, upside down. If I want to see something in the part, I'll just say, hold it up to the screen, fine. But there's also the use of the whiteboard if I need to show them, well, this is a marking that we would use for putting over this note or whatever. So that really is not something to stand in the way of you getting really solid, expert online violin lessons. The third point is a perfectly valid misgiving about teaching online that is going to be a stumbling block depending on the teacher. When you've got a teacher who has been teaching for decades, has been performing at the highest level orchestrally, and has been just living, breathing, eating, sleeping violin his or her whole life, we become so attuned to the student's body, even on the screen, that, for example, I can see instantly when and where a student is carrying tension. So I know immediately, hey, this is where you're feeling it. You've got some tension up in your upper right shoulder in the back. I can feel that. I can sense that. So here's what we need to do to address that. So from that standpoint, it comes down to the skill level of the teacher. And with a really first-rate teacher, that is no longer a problem either on the online format. So if you think you might like to give it a try, the email is down below. Shoot me an email. We'll start a discussion and see if this might be right for you. I'm Dr. Valissa Wilworth, and this is Violin Wise.